Hey guys, what's going on? In this video we're going to be taking a look at a Mini Maxx tuner. I couldn't imagine I would ever get one of these in, especially after watching a lot of Northridge Fixes videos dealing with the Mini Maxx tuners. Basically the story is his Mini Maxx tuner was kind of like, it was sitting in the window of his truck and ended up, when he went to get out to unplug it, somehow it fell and got caught between the door and kind of damaged the HDMI connector. So what I'm looking at here is he does not have the original connector anymore. He ended up sending this to a place in Toledo to have it looked at. They actually put an Xbox One S HDMI connector on it and they kind of modified it to work. So we may end up just reusing the connector. I don't know how possible that is or anything like that, but I'm going to do my best to use what I have available. Obviously he doesn't have the original HDMI connector that's vertical, so we can use the 90-degree angle ones. It's possible, but of course I've never worked on a board like this, so we are going to look under the microscope and see how bad this really is. I'm pretty much looking at this first time under the scope when you guys do, so this is going to be really exciting. Okay, so let's take a look here and see what we got going on. So from the looks of it, it looks like we're missing most. Looks like, yeah, we're missing most of the pads, which is a very scary thing to look at. I see some of the connections that were attempted to be made. And right away, I don't know who did this job, but this is going to need like a literal full reconnecting of just about everything here. What I'm going to have to do, I'm actually going to have to remove the HDMI connector and I'm going to have to run every single trace, well, every trace wire that, I'm going to have to run a trace wire for every pad that's just ripped and destroyed, because clearly you can tell by the job that was done that it was not done correctly. So let me remove this connector and we'll go from there. Piece. Okay, so we have a significant amount of trace damage here. Alright, so pads that we're missing. One, 2. These are fine as long as I can get them solid again. 3. These are fine. This is a no connect here. It does not go anywhere. What do I say here? 1. Okay, we're going to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. Looks like 8. Probably 9. And that's it. Because these two are no connect. There's nothing going to be connecting there. So I'm going to clean this board up just a little bit here. So we have about 9 traces that are just missing. That is a lot. Well, I'm still going to do the job. Hopefully we can get this fixed up for the customer and hopefully it'll work and he will be very happy. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and take my pair of tweezers, and it just has a not quite a sharp end, but a pretty sharp end. And I'm going to kind of very gently get rid of some of the solder mask here. So it exposes an area that I can apply solder to. Now, same thing here, because this is about to break off, and I'm just going to break it off because I'm not going to deal with a very loose pad. I would rather deal with something that is soldered and connected to the board. Alright, so we can apply solder to that and we can solder a wire to that. Now sometimes you can solder wires all the way back here, but this is the same type of material that goes all the way up, so I'm just going to solder it as close as possible. Alright, so we got 1 and 2, those are done. 3 here. Alright. That's good. So 4. And that'll be good. Alright. We have 5, which I'm actually just going to break off because it's so loose, and I would rather deal with a solid connection that's, you know, still adhered to the board as much as possible. You know, it just makes sense. Okay. See, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This, I'm gonna probably desolder that. This is pretty much good to go right here. I can apply solder to that. And then there is a connection here and a connection here that doesn't matter because 1 and 2, these do not do anything. There are no connects anyway, so I'm assuming everything starts going this way and ends probably here because you have a line that goes there. So those are no connects, and the rest have some connects and some do not. So that's really nice. Oh, I missed one. Oop, my bad. I totally didn't realize, but I totally did miss it. My bad. So let's go ahead and okay. So there we go. There's that trace there now. I've got to get rid of this wire. And I'm going to use up some of my old Amtech 213. And this flux is a very, very good flux. I went from that to the Amtech 559. And personally, I had no problem with it. I actually really liked it a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this little trace wire that he had there. Now, you know what? Also, oh, okay, it's still stuck on there. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and remove this one as well because it's so loose. We'll just put a wire there. And we'll go ahead and cut back here some of the... Okay. Some of the solder mask. Alright. Now that there is some flux on the board, I'm going to put flux in the areas of where we need to apply solder to. And... Alright. So we're just going to apply solder to all of the areas we're going to run jumpers. That is going to be number next. So we're just going to kind of run solder over the areas. We don't really need to do anything super duper strenuous. Okay. We get a little bridge there, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll probably run it over with the wick or whatever. Alright, or just clear it. Real easy to clear. So yeah, alright, we're pretty much ready to go. All of our areas are ready for wires to be ran. Now, I'm going to grab my trace wire wherever it is. Now this is enameled wire, so we can actually run this across the board and touch components and everything, and it has an enamel over it, so that it will actually protect it from shorting. I'm going to heat it up here and get the enamel to be exposed. We're going to solder it to our very first point here. It doesn't have to look super pretty, it just needs to work. There we go. Now I'm going to bend this around. Of course, it does not need to look like the original trace. We could just run it over, just like that, and make it, you know. Okay. We're going to take a razor blade and just cut off whatever we don't need. Okay. Just make sure this wire is as straight, as good as it's going to be. And that'll be fine. Alright, now we're going to do the next one. Go ahead and solder it to this little trace here. That's good. We'll cut cut it with our razor blade. There we go. Alright. Okay. Now we'll do number 3. Okay. We'll go ahead and solder it to our little pad that we made. Add some solder, clean off the iron. I'm going to tin it up here, and I'm going to add some solder to our area. That'll work. Alright. We're going to cut it. That'll do. There's our wire. Goes all the way where it needs to be. Alright. Next one we got right there. There we go. Really helps if you put flux down too. Clear it out real nice and easy. Let me line this back up here. Try to make it generally straight. Okay. That'll do. The next one is right next to it. Spin the board. I just want to add and mention, this is extremely delicate work. Extremely delicate. Lord, please guide my hands. That'll do. Last two is that one, this one. Felt pretty good. these are all the little trace wires. Okay, so we got a lot going on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some alcohol and I'm going to clear the area of any flux, and we're going to encase all these wires in some solder mask so that they all stay in place. I'll go ahead and take a Q-tip and very gently clean up the area. You don't really want to push down too much. You just want to kind of touch up the area because you don't really want to move the wires around too much because you'll break them. Ask me how I know. I know because I have done that. You want to be real gentle. And obviously grab a new Q-tip if you have to. Put a little bit more alcohol down. And you can reposition the wires. We don't want to reposition them too often because you will tear for make the matters worse. And we're just kind of, touching the area real gently. Try to soak up any other alcohol and flux that we can soak up here. All right. You don't want to get any of these, anything tied into one of the strands on these, on the Q-tip. So go ahead and straighten that wire out there. Do a little bit of straightening here. Let me grab, this one wire is pointing up slightly. It's not laying on the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tweezer under and the other tweezer down. Make it flat. Well, that didn't work too well, did it? Maybe the solder mask will help that stay flat. Alright. Okay. The rest are good. So we'll go ahead and grab our solder mask now. I usually like to use either like a paper towel or a little bit of some waste paper or something. You can use anything to just put a little bit of solder mask in it. So then you have a place that you can pull solder mask from as like a little reserve. Now I'm going to set the solder mask off to the side here. Alright. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take solder mask on my tweezers. I'm going to coat the area entirely with solder mask. Did actually want to look at this HDMI connector to see if it was possible if we could reuse it, because the gentleman that soldered it up didn't do a terrible job, and it would save me time trying to remake another port for it. So I'm actually going to take a look here and see how bad it is. Okay, so realistically it's not in terrible shape. This obviously is fine. This is fine. I do appreciate the engineering ability of some to take and make something that would work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the gene extractor here. Grab some flux. I'm going to go ahead and clear up some of these pins here while the board is curing. Get rid of some of these old pads that are bad. Okay. Alright, so our legs are just about ready to go. Minus that pad there that just wanted to stay. Alright. All these legs are, see if I can get a better, all the legs are pretty much ready to go at this point. And we could just stick the port in and then just hopefully solder it in. And one thing I would like to do is I was thinking about the front of this HDMI connector and this area, and maybe applying solder here and scraping up the board and trying to get that to where this would be like a ground pad. Solder that, so we have these anchors here, right there, and then have another connection right here. That would be really nice. We'll see what's possible here, but this is what our connector looks like. Not terrible, not shabby at all. I think this will work perfect. Now, obviously, remember this is a Xbox One S HDMI connector that has been modified by someone else, not me. So we'll go ahead and try it. Okay, so I've been praying all through this repair, and I praise God. Basically, I had this idea that I would just ball up the solder on the ground anchors. Now, the solder isn't soldered to anything in particular because there is no ground on the board. Like under this mask, there's no ground. It's just the actual board. So what I did was I balled it up there. So it's balled up and balled up, and what that does is it sort of makes a friction fit. So it's got solder on one side of the board and a big ball of solder on the other side, and so the port is solid. Well, praise God for that. We'll go ahead and solder in all of our legs here, and then we'll probably call this a day.
So I'm going to do my absolute best here. Oh no. I'm going to check the integrity of these connections after I alcohol this part of the board here. I'll check the integrity of each connection. Tap. So hard to tell officially. They all look pretty solid, so I mean, this is as good as it's going to get. Try one. Nope. That's not bad.
Alright, I'm going to set the voltage to 5 volts. Or as close as I can get it. That'll be good to go. Alright, we're going to connect to my little USB connector thing that I made. Alright, here's the device, and let's see if it works. Plug it in, see if there's any... Okay, that's good. Let's boot up here. Oh, it's booting up. Praise the Lord. Okay. Awesome. Alright, so the device is working. Awesome. Alright, so it's obviously drawing current, and obviously 5 volts. So to really know if it works, he's going to have to connect this to his truck and see if it actually turns on or anything. But at least we know that it works just by testing it with the DC power supply. Alright, so I'm going to give this back to the customer, and hopefully it works, and I will update you guys in a moment if this works or not. Now also, the customer said the other shop actually set up the device where they cut the plastic out so the port would fit, which I thought was really convenient for me since I didn't have to do anything like that. And the port is solid, especially not like it was. It was really not solid, now it is, and it's as good as it's going to be. So I'll let him test it out, we'll go from there. So shortly after I gave the device back to the customer, he went ahead and tested it in his truck, and this is the video he sent me. Guys, I couldn't believe it. The device worked. It worked after all those pads and traces. I am so thankful the Lord blessed during this repair. I don't know if I was clear about this, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it to you guys because I don't think I covered it well in this video. The 2 side posts that go down through the through-hole anchor points that you would solder to, the actual holes has no metal in it to solder anything to. So that's the reason I had to ball it up on the actual posts, because there was nothing to solder it to. So I had to kind of like almost push the port in and then sort of ball up the solder so that it would kind of wedge the port in there. So by itself, the 2 solder balls I put on the both posts ended up wedging it in there real nicely. And then that pad that we made on the front and soldered the port in with, it made the port real solid. So all in all, the actual HDMI port is really, really solid on the board. Naturally, I wouldn't recommend, obviously, using an Xbox One S connector, but it works just fine. As long as you modify it, and if you want to use whatever connector you want to use, you can use it. I mean, as long as it'll work, it'll work. If you guys could hit that subscribe button, that like button, shows me I'm doing a good job. You guys like my videos, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.